Hi, I'm Somya, and you're listening to Philosopreneur, where we explore the intersection and integration of the philosopher and entrepreneur. Today's guest is Divia Dhir. Divya is an astropreneur from India. She's learning to predict the future and turning this skill into a six-figure online business. Hailing from India with aspirations of becoming an Indian diplomat, Divya's path took an unexpected turn into the realm of Vedic astrology. Nights turned into days as she dove into the mysteries of astrology, transitioning from a skeptic to a passionate practitioner. Starting with decoding the enigmas of her own life, Divya's newfound insights became a guiding light for her family and friends. As her interests evolved into a fervent passion, she recognized the immense potential of astrology to pave the way for more fulfilling lives. Determined, she embraced professionalism, becoming a seasoned astrologer. Today, Divya leverages her astrological prowess to carve out a full-time income online. Her mission is clear: to empower fellow astrology enthusiasts to turn their passion into a sustainable livelihood while helping the world. Join Divya on this celestial journey, and together, let's navigate the cosmos towards a world where stars align with success. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hi, Divya. Welcome to the Philosopreneur podcast.
Hey, Samya, thank you for inviting.
Great. So maybe we can just start by, telling everyone, what do you do and where are you currently based?
So, I'm currently based in India. I was born and brought up in India, and I'm an astrologer. I'm a professional astrologer, a Vedic astrologer. And right now, what I do is I take whatever I've learned to make accurate predictions about the future. I've packaged it up into a course and a coaching program, and I'm teaching others how to make a full time income using astrology while helping others and helping themselves.
Wow, very interesting. So I think you call yourself an astropreneur, right?
Yes.
And is that something you came up with, or you saw other people using it?
No, that's something that I came up with. That's actually sort of like I stole it from Justin Welsh. Like he's like solopreneur. Like uh, to me, I always I see myself as an astrologer, but not a traditional astrologer. There are
Hmm.
lots of things that I do not agree with. How traditional astrologers, certain things they do, certain things the way they operate and stuff like that. And I also have the mindset that astrology is not just about helping others, it's also about helping yourself, earning your own livelihood. So when people say that astrologers, like especially in India, people have this thing that astrologers are only meant to help the you are you should be helping others. That's the goal of astrology, which is true, but there's also economic side to life. You also have to earn your livelihood. You should not be depending on other people, right? So I wanted to combine both things where I'm using the knowledge of astrology to make a full-time income while while helping people the way I want to help them.
Wow, that's
And
super.
yeah, and if we actually traced uh, the roots, like if you go back in time and trace the origin of astrology, if you read the scriptures and the classical text, astrology was meant to help astrologers earn money
Mm.
to support themselves.
Oh, really? So this is from the Vedic scriptures?
Yes, from
Okay.
Vedic scriptures. Yeah.
Wow. Could you? I mean, I don't know how much you've looked into it, but could you just share more about that? That the primary reason for being an astrologer is to help the astrologer, not the people.
Help the people, also the astrologer, not just the people, just the
Okay.
others. So the thing was that there was a saint called Saint Rigo. There's an entire sect of astrology based just on his classical literature. And he was a very, very ardent devotee of Lord Vishnu, I believe. And once what happened was that, he had been meditating for decades. And his wife came to him complaining that, what is the use of your meditation if you can't even feed your family? Like, why do we have to suffer? Why are all the bad people, they have everything, they're thriving, but we don't even have like food to eat? Like, why? This is wrong, this is not right. And then Saint Rigu, he went to Lord Vishnu and he said the same thing. He told him what his wife was saying, and he says that, Lord, uh, you know, Saint Brigo said that she's right. My wife is right. I have devoted myself to you since like how many decades I've been practicing meditation, just focusing my attention everything on you. And why does my family have to suffer? Like, can't you even take care of your disciples or your devotees that much? And then Lord Vishnu was like, you have a valid point, and I agree. So today, when you go back and sit down for your meditation, like your daily meditation, I will start giving you knowledge of astrology, which is using which you'll be able to predict the future for others. And when they come to know their future, you charge them a fee. So by doing this, you help them and you guide them how to navigate life, you know, having all this knowledge of what is going to happen in the future based on the basis of what they did in the past. You'll be able to help them, but also your family will also be able to live a good life.
Hmm.
So that's how in the classical Hindu literature, this is the birth of astrology.
Nice. Very interesting. I've never heard that before, so thank you for sharing that. It sounds like most, so-called sannyasis, right? They would um not get married and go into the mountains, because I think it is tough to live a very devoted spiritual life while also having family to have to, bring in income and help sustain the family. It seems like that's the challenge of our modern day society as well, is how do we do what we want while also caring for those around us. So very interesting to hear that astrology was the solution for that,
Yes.
as a form of spiritual practice. Yeah, that
Yeah.
is very interesting. So, um, how did your astrological journey begin? Were you always open to it, or were you skeptical at any point? Yeah, just share with us where it all started.
So it's actually quite funny because I did not believe in astrology at all. Like I wasn't opposed to it, but I also did not want to have anything to do with it. Like my family, they believe in astrology. And every time they wanted to take my horoscope to an astrologer, I would tell them, you can take yours, but please don't take mine because I don't want it. I was like that. I was a skeptic. Not exactly a skeptic, but I was like neutral. I did not want it. I did not, like I was okay with it. Like if others are doing, I'm fine with it. But I wasn't interested in it at all. So there was a time when I was uh, I was away from home, and there a person came to my place, and he told my dad he was an astrologer, and he told my dad a few things about his future and my family's future, and some of those things were not really pleasant, and it really pissed me, and I was like, dude, this is not cool. Either you shouldn't have said that, or now it should come true. So like it really sort of ticked me, and I said that, okay, so if he's so confident that these things are going to come true and he's making such bold predictions, then let me study astrology. Let me see if there's any truth to any of this. Or is it just by fluke that some predictions come true, some don't, just they go by their intuition? Or is it an actual science? So that got me started into astrology. So I started reading scriptures, I started watching YouTube videos, and I quickly discovered that it is an actual science. It's an ancient science, but it is a science. Okay. And it is based on mathematical calculations and everything that all the advanced scientists in the world, all the things that they are ratifying now, all all these things are written, they were written in the scriptures like to 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 years ago. So science is just catching up with the ancient wisdom in a way, right? So it intrigued me even more when I found that there is a scientific basis to this, and there's maths involved. There's, you can time things, you can predict, you can time, and it fits in the entire picture of the universe. Like law of karma, law of gratitude, law of attraction, the past lives, the future lives, and what all spiritual masters have been saying, what all scriptures have been saying, what common sense says. it just fit right in, like, it's just like a proper fit.
Mm.
It was like a proper fit in everything. And I've been studying this stuff like since when I was like 12. So I've read like a lot about spirituality, about subconscious, the scientific things like a lot of subconscious mind. I've read a lot of stuff about all of this, about karma and about scriptures. So when I realized that astrology is actually something, like there could be something to it, that's when I started going deeper and I started developing my own techniques to predict the future. I took help, I bought a few courses, but uh, they did not really help that much. So that was the point where I thought that maybe it's just a scam. There's nothing to it. Maybe it's just a scam. But then I predicted a few things using the techniques that I had developed. And I was like, I just did that for fun. I just said, I'll just say that. And then I actually forgot about those things. And then my mom came back and she said, remember that day you said that this is going to happen? And today that actually happened. And then I was like, oh, I just did that for fun. But the feedback is nice. So maybe there's something to it. So then I started going deeper and deeper. And then I started predicting more things about myself. And all of those things started coming true. And then I did this with my brother, I did this with my parents and with my friends. And soon people started approaching me for paid consultations. Like they wanted me to predict on their chart. So I started doing that. And since I was doing this all day, all night, I said, I might as well make it a full time profession, right? And I started earning decent money with it. So I said, yeah, it's good enough. So let's just convert it, go full time, and let's see what happens. And then there came a time when uh, I started, like, it's draining to do readings, right? And there's uh, you can only do a few readings a day. And I reached that point and I was like, I'm not able to help more people. And really started seeing the results of those predictions, like, how it helps others. Like their stress goes down, they have more certainty in life, they know exactly what to do, they know exactly why certain things are happening. Not all people come for knowing the future. Okay. A lot of people will come to astrologers to get validation, but without them telling you anything. So, without them asking you the question, without them telling you the situation, if you're able to predict all of that from the chart, then they've sort of gotten their validation. And that's what they came for. So, when I started seeing the results, how deep the impact of astrology is on improving the lives of everyone around me and my clients, I started realizing that this is something that it should be practiced, by more people. So when I looked around, I actually bought a few consultations from one of the, like, not uh, a bunch of best astrologers around the world, whoever's available online. I went on YouTube, I looked them up, I did a little bit of research, and I bought consultations from them. And when I bought consultations from them, it was so disappointing. It was so disappointing because I considered myself a beginner because it had been just like 3 years or something. And I was already, like, not in a bad way, but I was already making better predictions. Like whatever they were giving me in the consultation, my predictions were so much better. And their predictions did not really help me. They did not really help me. So I was like, maybe this is what is wrong with astrology. So I started calling them junk astrologers because they're using astrology, but it's like junk food. It does not give you any nutrients, it's just for fun. So I started labeling them as junk astrologers. And so somebody approached me, like, when I was doing this and I was confused. I was like, how can they get this wrong? Like, they've been practicing since 20 years, and how come their consultations are not helpful? Like, I was really confused. Like, I did not understand what is happening, why it is happening. And during this time, there was one person who approached me to learn astrology. Actually, I was planning to do YouTube with it, with astrology. And my coach, my business coach, he suggested that why don't you take it up? Why don't you start a coaching program? And he suggested somebody, he knew somebody, one of his friends who was interested in astrology. So he wanted to learn astrology. So he suggested this guy to take my program. And then I started coaching him. And this guy had taken a few other courses as well. And when he compared those courses with mine, he was like, now I understand like where I, you know, so basically where the thing is that astrologers in all the programs, they do not give the whole sauce. They hide something. And in the consultations also, they hide things. They do not do it with all their heart. If they do it with all their heart, I'm 100% sure that they'll be able to help people. But since they want to reserve that superior knowledge only for the select few, or only for the ones who are paying like $10,000 per consultation, something like that, that is why other people are not able to take benefit of it. And I didn't like that, because to me, even if somebody spends $1 on you, if they are buying your consultation even for $1, you should give all your heart. If you've taken money, then you should justify even if it's $1. Does not matter. So to me, if it is $1 or $10,000, it does not matter. It's the same. I have to give the same quality. The quality does not change. So I started giving my students all the techniques and all the, every all of my systems that I use in astrology, and they started liking it. They started suggesting more people, and then I became a coach, like an official coach, astrology coach. And I realized that I like coaching my students more than I like doing consultations, because I can coach a lot of people at once. But consultations, like I have to, like I'm limited to just 4 or 5 people a day, not more than that at all. So, uh, so it in my mind, I can have a bigger impact if I share everything that I know about astrology, and every day I, sit down and I do my research, and everything that I develop, all the techniques, all the systems that I develop, I give it to my students. So if I just share my systems, more people will be able to learn astrology, the real astrology, not the junk one, and they'll be able to help a lot more people than if I just keep everything to myself and do this client work. So that is why I sort of became an astrology coach as well. So this is my entire story, and this is where I'm right now.
Nice. That's quite a journey you've been on, from being a skeptic to having this astrologer come into your family and predict something, and then, you taking on that research yourself and finding the truth of it. That's really amazing. And to see how you've scaled your business. I love that you're taking it further than just the readings. You're really giving away your knowledge to the world, which is a very remarkable thing to do. Yeah, I think that it's very interesting in India. It does seem that the these pundits, I guess, or jyotishas,
Hmm.
they're at the height of Indian society, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so they do hold a lot of power, and I think that it's not surprising, because knowing the future, and when I say knowing, I hold it I hold it with a grain of salt, because I really really and this is maybe where we disagree a bit, that no one can 100% concretely predict the future, because and I'll share this, if there's so many astrologers in India who have the power to predict the future, why is India not the empire of the world? That is my question. If an entire nation has so many people who have such a good sense of the future, and those who have knowledge and power of the future, it seems that they would 100% own the world in some sense, because they have this intuition, they have foresight. That is what every human being, I mean, not every human being, but that is the essence of what maybe humanity is going for, this capacity to predict, the capacity to know what lies ahead, right? I mean, that's what science is about, and that's what has led us to land spacecrafts on the moon, is because we were able to do things at a very accurate level. So that is one question I have. And I love conversing with you because you're very future focused as an astrologer. You're all about predictions and helping others make accurate predictions as well. As for me, I'm less focused on the predictions of the future and more focused on well, I wouldn't say that that I'm not focused on the predictions of the future, but I'm less focused on the concrete prediction and more on the archetypal. When I say archetypal, I mean the mood of the future. So I'm not going to say that it's going to be a war or a pandemic, but I'm going to say that the mood of our collective society is going to be a bit grim in that moment. But I won't say exactly what it is because I actually don't know exactly what it's going to be. And maybe that maybe it means you might just be a better astrologer. I don't know. You know, I know that you are a great astrologer, but I've also ran into a lot of Vedic astrologers who have been utterly wrong. And then my second question to you is
Okay,
this.
okay.
Okay,
Let me
sorry, go
just
ahead.
address
Yes,
this.
yes, go ahead.
All right. So for your first question, why is India not great if it has so many great astrologers? The answer to that question, like there are multiple points to it. The first thing is that India is not the only country who uses astrology. Okay. India was probably the first one, and India has uh, the classical, the most, we have like a lot of classical literature for study of astrology. Okay. Other countries may not have as many uh, scholars of astrology in the past or classical literature, but all of the countries, they have been using astrology. It's not just India. Okay. Be it Greece, be it China, be it, the Central America, the Latin America, France. You can go to any part of the world, you will find evidence of astrology there, 100% sure. And that is also, in their country also, it is regarded as an ancient science. Like even in America, like, the Red Indians, they practice astrology and they have books on that. I've read those books, so I know it's the same thing. They just use different terms. Like instead of Aries, they'll call it something else, but they're describing exactly the same thing. Okay. So India is not the only one. Okay. Every country has access to it, and most countries have astrologers in their a lot of countries, not most, but a lot of countries have astrologers in their like core cabinet, like the advisory cabinet who they go to. So it's not just India. A lot of other countries also do that, right? Like in fact, I think it's Bhutan's the head of the state. He always has an astrologer by his side. Every interview, every place that he shows up, he always has an astrologer. So it's not just India, it's a lot of other countries as well. First is that. Second, knowing the future is one thing. Okay. uh, so before answering that, let me just address this, that astrology is a tool to check how are your past karmas going to influence your current life or your future life, right? It is not a tool to change everything that is going to happen. Astrology is uh, it is astrology has two parts to it. It is a tool to determine what will happen in your life today, tomorrow, day after, on the basis of the karma that you performed in all the previous lives, including this one. Okay. So astrology is divided in two parts. One is the fixed karma part, one is the variable part. The fixed karma part is always derived on the basis of, both of these are derived on the basis of past karma. But the fixed karma is such karma that we cannot change. Whether it is you, whether it is me, whether it is India, whether it is a dog, the fixed karma part you have to bear. There's nothing that you can do to change that. Okay. A part of the horoscope is in the fixed karma category. A part of the horoscope is in the variable part. Variable part is where you can perform remedies and change the future. Okay. Or improve your life. Or if you have bad habits, then your life, the quality of life decreases. Okay, because that is variable part. So whatever you're doing right now, that is influencing the variable. And whatever you're doing right now is getting recorded, and your future lifetimes will be based on this karma that you're incurring right now. Okay. So having the knowledge, this is uh, so part one is clear, right? There's different sorts of karma on which astrology is based. Astrology is just a tool to know what you did in the past, and because of what you did in the past, what will happen in the future. It's just a plain tool. It's nothing more than that. Okay. It's like basically a forecasting tool. uh, the second thing is that there has to be big picture thinking. In my experience till now, where most astrologers go wrong when they're not able to help the other person is when they lack big picture thinking. And what do I mean by big picture thinking? Big picture thinking, like in the past time, in the in the ancient times, astrology was a part of the curriculum, but it came last. First was philosophy, then was maths, then was all the sciences, all the languages, all the sciences, and then at the end was astrology. Because astrology is something that, even if you get access to all the tools, even if you're able to forecast everything, you will not be able to make use of it unless you have big picture thinking, unless you understand all the other disciplines. Without all the other disciplines, if you just jump into astrology and you start predicting, yes, you'll be able to impress a few people, yes, you'll be able to make a few good predictions, but you won't be able to use it because you lack the understanding, you lack the knowledge of the karma, the knowledge of philosophy, like what you're doing. You're educating, every day you educate yourself, you learn. This is what philosopreneur is like. You grow, and along with that you grow your business, and that's basically the concept of philosopher, right? So without having knowledge of other disciplines, going into directly into astrology is where most people go wrong, especially in India. Okay. Especially all these jyotish and all these people, they may have memorized the scriptures, but they don't really get the sense of it. They don't even like dive deeper to understand what it really means. So I think this is why they're not able to use astrology.
Yeah, I really appreciate. I feel like you and I should definitely either have a separate podcast as you have suggested, or do a space, do a series of spaces on X to dive deeper, because I have so much I want to talk to you about. Just solely focused on astrology. So yeah, I appreciate everything you've said, and let's probably dive deeper into that at another time, because I do have a lot of questions I do want to ask. Um, let's see. So I think this okay. I just need a moment, because you did bring up a lot and I have a lot of questions.
Sure.
Okay, so you're right that many astrology is so ancient. Like, I mean, all our ancestors were looking at the stars. It's like probably the first thing that it's the first maybe area of study that we had, because that's all we had, was to look at the movement of the stars. So it's very ancient. I would agree with you. Most cultures have used it in some sense as a tool. Um, and you're right. Even in the U.S., Reagan was Ronald Reagan was famous for having an astrologer. Many, um,
Washington as well.
okay, interesting. I didn't know that. Um, so then the question comes to the style of astrology. There's a difference there now, right? With Vedic astrology being a bit more in the traditional way, although you may disagree with that now, because I think initially you said you're not a traditional astrologer, but I see Vedic astrology as a traditional form of astrology from my perspective as an archetypal astrologer, because we see beyond Saturn. And all forms of astrology that don't see beyond Saturn I consider traditional, because Saturn itself is the essence of tradition as an archetypal from an archetypal perspective. So I want to ask you about that. Do you think that, I mean, obviously we both agree here that astrology is reality. It's not a matter of belief anymore. It is happening. So it's a matter of most of whoever is not believing in it in our species. It's just a matter of time for them to come on board, until our
Yeah.
entire species wakes up to this whole notion that the planets are, somehow mysteriously correlating with human affairs. So, do you think that as that period unfolds, it is going to be important for us to come to a consensus, at least for macro mundane astrology, that we have a sense of objectivity? Because I think when you're giving readings one-on-one, it's okay
Mm-hmm.
that there's a bit of subjectivity involved. Like, for instance, I don't use the zodiac system or the houses. I only look at the planets and the
Mm-hmm.
angular alignment between the planets, because that is consistent across the board. There's no difference there in the Vedic system, in the Hellenistic system, whatever system you're looking at, it's going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
But what changes is the zodiac and the houses, because of the tropical and the sidereal differences over there. So is it going to be important to have a sense of to have consensus globally, so that we can all
Mm.
come on board with a sense that this is a science? It's not just a belief system, it's a science.
Yeah. I don't think so. Like when we talk about like in respect to tools, like Vedic astrology is just a tool. Like Western astrology is just a tool, right? Other forms of astrology are they're just basically tools. Okay. For mathematics, I can either use my fingers to count, I can use an abacus to count, I can use a calculator to count, I can use an Excel spreadsheet to count, to do the math. What matters is the end result, the principles and the end result. The principles remain the same. Therefore, 2 plus 2 has to be equal to 4 across all these different tools. When you use abacus, it should be 4. When you use Excel, it should be 4. When you use your fingers, it should be 4. That is what matters. To me, whether you use Vedic astrology, or you use Western astrology, or you use any sort of astrology, does not matter, because it's just a tool. To me, the end result matters. And when your predictions are based on principles, okay, the end result always is the same. It cannot vary.
Okay. uh yeah, the end result cannot vary. I agree with that, but it kind of does in some sense, right? I think the more precise you're getting, especially with Vedic astrology, the higher the chances of it being wrong.
No. On the contrary, the higher the chances of it being right, not wrong.
No, because I disagree. I think the more concretely you're trying to predict something, you are giving more room for error. When you're actually when from my perspective, archetypally, like I said, I'm not going to predict whether it's a war or a pandemic. I'm not going to say that, even though I may have a feeling about which one it is. I'm not going to say that, because I'm just going to say there's just going to be a feeling of uh, constriction in our collective psyche. That's as far as I will go. Because the universe, my perspective, and now we're getting into a bit of metaphysics and cosmology here, is that it's so vast, it's so open. And this is where I think that Vedic astrology is a bit limited, because they're not seeing beyond Saturn. And what comes after Saturn? Uranus. Uranus is this sense of openness, of unpredictability, of change, and that changes everything from a perceptual lens. It brings in that element that, hey, we can't actually say we know what is going to happen. That gives us a sense of authority on the universe. That's Saturn, but Uranus
Mm.
completely changes all of that. And so that's my perspective. That main difference is that going beyond Saturn brings in a sense of the unknown.
You are right in a way, but then why stop at Uranus? Why
I'm not
stop at solar? No, no, no. It's just like I'm just trying to put forth my point. That the point is that I agree with you. Okay, I agree with you. But the thing is that we have to draw a line somewhere, because the thing is, the closer you are to a certain thing, the more influence it is going to exert on you. Okay. So the planets which are closest to us are obviously going to exert more influence. That is why whenever any planet goes retro, meaning they're very close to planet Earth, you see significations of that planet everywhere. Right? A Mercury, if Mercury goes retro, you you've lived through retro Mercury periods. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. So to me, you are absolutely right. Okay. And all the outer planets, not outer, the planets beyond Saturn, or all the other cosmic beings beyond Saturn, whether planets or other, sort of zodiac systems and whatever it is, they do have an influence on us. But how much?
Yeah.
And
So
is it required? Yeah, please go ahead.
no. You finish what you were gonna say.
Yeah, so to me, if a certain thing is going to exert an influence of at the, let's say, 80% influence on you, versus there's another thing which is going to exert 15% influence on you. Okay. Best would be if you take into account everything. But if that's too much for you, okay, it is for me right now. I don't want to go beyond Vedic astrology. Okay, then I'll just take into account whatever exerts 80% of influence, and I'll predict with that.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from, but now, okay, look, we're still in this metaphysical argument, and this is where things go a bit tough in terms of bringing those materialists. When I say materialists, I mean people who are embedded in a scientific material, the old paradigm, not old, but in the current paradigm where they don't believe in astrology, because they think, how the hell can these planets emanate some kind, that they have had no sign of that occurring, right? If you try to test it through our scientific tools, you don't see that influence, right? And so the way that you're sharing, you're saying whatever is close to us is going to have the most significant influence. Then you're promoting that kind of perspective of astrology, that there's some kind of energy being emanated. But I don't believe that. I believe that there's just some kind of, I don't think that we need to look at it from that perspective of whether there's energy being emanated. It's just somehow everything is breathing together. The universe is breathing together. And these are the planets in our solar system, and we're just focusing on the planets. I know you're right, there's asteroids, and many astrologers I know are bringing all of that in. There's so many things to work with, but 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 there's something significant about just the 10 planets, in our solar system. And obviously history is proof of that, correlation. I mean, my professor Richard Tarnas has done a lot of research and work on this, and has showcased over and over again that, these planetary alignments have a significant correlation with things that happen on Earth, and that's enough proof to showcase that this is a reality. That's my sense of it. But I understand where you're coming from, but I'm very interested in finding an integration with Vedic astrology, because I think that there would be a lot of power if you guys were open to integrating Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And the thing is that everything is energy. So it's not about believing whether they're emanating energy or not. Everything is energy. Today, you're drinking water. If you can do an experiment, like you can curse your bottle of water for like 10 days, drink that water, and then bless another water bottle for 10 days and drink that water, you'll be able to feel the difference, and drastic difference. Like energy is everything. This is the basic principle of how life, at least on earth, is. In fact, the entire universe, it is all about energy. Like, it's everything is energy. Okay. sun's rays reach us, it is a form of energy. But it's just that sun's rays, like because sun is the most powerful being in our solar system, it is the most powerful being. That is why it is considered as the king in the planetary cabinet. And it is spiritually the highest being in our planet, in our one of the highest beings in our solar system. That is why we are able to, you know, probably feel it and probably see it, because it's just so bright. It's just so elevated spiritually. You can see it. So it's not a question about whether they emit energy or not. They do. Everyone does. I do, you do. A glass of water, like a drop of water, also. There are scientific instruments these days that you can test where, like, if you just put a drop of water, you can test what sort of environment has that water lived in before. So if they're able to do that scientifically, if they're able to deduce that without any knowledge, any previous knowledge whatsoever about the whereabouts, like, or where they got the water from, then if scientific instruments can do that, then it just proves that it's all about energy. It's all about
Yeah,
energy. It's
yeah. No, I agree with you. I'm totally with you on that, that everything is energy. Um, what I'm saying is that these scientific materialists will be looking for exactly what you're saying, and they may not find it. They may not be able to measure that the sun is affecting this individual, or Pluto or Neptune is like emanating these energies, and that's why this is what's happening on Earth. That is actually coming from a materialist perspective rather than an esoteric perspective.
I think that,
Esotericism,
yeah, sorry,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
there's a sense of openness there, that not everything has to be measured through an instrument. That there is a sense of mystery in our world, in the way that everything is moving together, and you don't need to. And that's why this is a paradigm shift. Bringing astrology back to the forefront of human consciousness is a paradigm shift, because we've been in 400 years of, like, since the scientific revolution, which, and bringing in all these principles that we're uh, so embedded in as moderners, and now we're breaking that open and saying, actually, it's not science in the form that we have it right now does not have the last word on reality. There's something beyond that that we're not so aware of, and that we need to include, even if it is a bit more mysterious than we can handle.
The thing, the thing is, as per my understanding, I believe that science is really good, but science is very, very slow. And modern science is like, it's still very, very, very behind in the league. Like, it has a lot of catching up to do. The proof that they're looking for, they're not wrong for looking for proofs, but just that the technology is not developed yet to examine the proof, or to notice the proof. For example, if, I don't know, if like 700 700 years back, if you told me that you can use solar energy to like you can use sun to make electricity, people would have laughed at you. But today that's possible. Why? Because we have the tool to do that. So it's not about whether it is true or not. It is true. It's just that we do not have the tools to prove it yet. And they will take a long time to catch up. They will take a long time to catch up.
Yeah.
So uh, I usually never debate on this, because people have been brainwashed into believing science, which is just like what, 500 years old. And the people who are doing this are often the ones who want to control the people. Like, you're taking people away from the ancient sciences, which have been in existence since thousands of years. And every day, every year, whatever the scientific discovery is, you can find traces of that in ancient scriptures. Like, for example, like very, very, very basic example I want to give, like science is now confirming that Mars is red in color. Okay, and the atmosphere of Mars, like whatever they're saying right now, it was written in the scriptures, the exact thing, thousands of years back, the exact thing. Until the time they did not rediscover it using the modern tools, they were like, this is BS. This is not true. And now that they've discovered the tool, like they've invented the tools to measure that, or to somehow, scientifically prove that, they're like, no, now this is what we are saying is right. And I agree with them, they are right, but it was already written. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, that's what's happening with quantum physics as well, is that
yes,
they're realizing all these spiritual truths, with Buddhism and Hinduism and whatever else. It's like science is now slowly, as you say, is starting to show that
catch
that's
up.
actually a reality. Yeah. I appreciate that perspective that modern science is a bit slow. I don't think I've heard anyone say that, so that's a very interesting take.
Modern science is a very good tool that we're developing, but in comparison to ancient sciences, it is very, very slow. And it is a very, very, uh, ancient science is far superior in
Hmm.
every regard. In every regard. Like very basic things like about the ancient wisdom, like, before any, on an auspicious day, or before any ceremony, or before any good thing in the ancient times, like it's a tradition still in India that uh, priests, they do a few prayers holding water in their hand. Okay, they sing a few chants, they do a few prayers, but holding water in their hands. Okay, maybe in a utensil or something like that, but sometimes in their hands. The different procedures, right? But water they always keep in front whenever they're doing a prayer, a chant, when it's an auspicious day. Okay, now science says that water is programmable. Okay, science says water is programmable. But when the priests were doing that, they called them names. They're like, what are you doing, dude? They were making use of that scientific discovery that water is programmable. They've been using it since like ancient times. They were using that, what they're discovering now. They've been using that. So
Hmm.
there
Yeah,
are
that
many things like that. There are many
yeah,
things like that.
yeah, very interesting. I really appreciate that you're holding in a very warm embrace the value of these ancient sciences, and bringing that back to the forefront. We definitely need that. I don't think it's about throwing away modern science, and I don't think you're suggesting that. But
No,
there's
not
there's
at
a
all.
sense of there's a sense of integration that we need, and I think astrology is definitely at the forefront of that. So, yeah, good.
Yeah.
Nice. So, I think, we definitely have a lot to talk about in terms of the subject of astrology, but let me just bring it back to the entrepreneurship part of it as well. So, uh, you're an astropreneur. So, have you had any struggles in having to integrate your astrological practice into business? Because it's two different modes, right? An astrologer, although maybe you may disagree with this, but it's a spiritual practice, and then business is a commercial practice. So has there been any struggle in kind of bridging those two worlds together, or has it been a seamless process for you?
Uh, the thought process has been seamless, but I had to gain like business skills, right? Because it's a whole another game altogether, business, right? So the way I think is that I think I've struggled a lot uh, understanding the scene and the mechanics of online business and how to grow that and how to manage that. The regular things of business, like how to retain clients. Like, uh, I'm I'm very happy to say, I'm very happy with my track record of client retention. But there was a time when my client retention was really bad, so I had to learn how to retain clients, and the funnel and everything, how to set that up, how to write, how to deliver. These things form uh, parts of online business, and this is where I had to educate myself a lot on. So my part of struggle was gaining all these skills. Okay. Integrating these into astrology was very easy. It was very easy. It wasn't difficult at all, because the basic tenets of business are that if you have value, then you can give that value and get money in exchange, right? I knew I have value. I know there are a ton of people who are interested in knowing their future, and I'll be able to help them improve their life with the knowledge of the future. So there's a market. I have the knowledge. So it's just about putting together a good offer, which makes sense to me and which would make sense to the others, and then just getting traffic to it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really great. Sounds like you've done a lot of work to become a better businesswoman. So yeah, that I really appreciate that. And the second part of the question is, your
One thing I'd like to add is uh, that for me, when I started in online business world, for me, astrology was everything. And I loved studying astrology. I loved doing the readings and everything. So it took me a long time to convince myself that I have to do this. It's not an option. Like, you have to learn online business. You have to learn offline business. You have to learn all these things. So most of my struggle was in convincing myself that no, you can't skip this. You have to learn all of this. So
mm,
that is where I struggle. And that's where the resistance this is where the resistance is for most of astrologers who are very good but they don't make any money, that they're not able to support themselves or the family, because they're just reluctant to learn the business stuff. Because I understand learning astrology and practicing astrology in itself is like a huge task, right? And when you add learning about business and how the world works and how human psychology is, how to put together offers, that just becomes too much. And to get yourself to learn that, this is where the resistance is. This is where I also struggled a lot. Like, I had to push myself and I was reluctant. I still kept learning, and I was like, I hated initial few months, I hated it. But I loved my message more, and I wanted to take it to more people, and I also want to be able to support myself. So there was no other option. I had to learn it. And then I started falling in love with it. And now I just love. You can make me work on astrology, you can make me work on business. I just love both. I
that's
can do that
awesome.
all day.
I love hearing that. Yeah, it's interesting. I think I am with you on that. As someone who is also bringing now astrology into the larger world through business, it is a challenge sometimes to figure out, because a business is all about solving problems, and the problems never end. They just keep occurring, and you have to have that mindset
Yes.
to just immediately solve it without feeling like, oh my god, this is a lot. While
Yeah.
astrology, being a spiritual practice, is you're kind of safe in it because you already know it
Yeah.
so well, and it's fun.
Yes.
uh, so there's a bit of this yin yang, feminine masculine quality there that I think is great with astrology and business being combined, because you're bringing both together.
Mhm.
Yeah, do you feel that when you're doing this work, that you're kind of holding this yin yang quality? Or do you feel that, I mean, I think predictions are actually quite yang compared to yin, but what do you feel?
To me, I view everything, the core of my offer or my business or my astrology readings is to be able to help the client that I'm doing a reading for, or to be able to coach the student, the mentee who's come to me to learn astrology. Okay. So I always keep that in focus. Beyond, like, this is the purpose, this is the end result. To achieve where I want to go, if I have to use astrology, I'll use astrology. If I have to use business, I'll use business. But to me, the goal is that it's there's no distinction now. Like, I think in the initial phase, you struggle a lot, and there's a lot of this you there's very hard sort of borders, that this is astrology and this is business. I'm working on astrology, or I'm working on business. But after you understand everything about business, you understand that it just becomes second nature to you. So after that, I think after that, I've not struggled at all. Like to me,
Mm.
it's not, it's just like second nature to me. Like astrology is second nature to me. Business is also second nature to me. I can just, I don't have to think about it. To me, I
Yeah,
just keep my end goal in mind that I have to help this person the best. Now, whether using business, whether using astrology, I don't think about that. It just
it's
go
one
with the
thing
flow.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's one thing.
yeah,
There's
that's
synergy,
interesting.
there's energy in that now.
Nice, nice. That's great to hear. Um, so you're very close to the future. You help to predict other people's future, and now you're sharing that information on how to do it with other people, your students. So do you often look at your own chart and look
Yes.
at and predict your future? And how do you, I mean, there's this idea of a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that's the thing with astrology sometimes, and knowing the future is that, especially if when it's so close to you, because you're looking at it every day, and then you're making predictions. So how do you work with that, especially as a business person? Like, what if you're seeing something that is not really good? How do you how do you work through that while also leaving room for, I'm going to go back to this, the unknown, and that sense of universal creativity, which is not so precise.
Okay, so what I've understood from your question is that how do I deal with something negative that I see in my chart, and especially when I use my logical brain or the business brain, and it does not fit, or it fits, and then I'm scared. Like, how do I deal with all of that, right?
Yes, how to deal, because I think when it comes to my own self, if I see I have a transit, a pretty tough transit coming up, I start thinking, oh my God, all these kind of negative things, like it could be this, could be that. Um, and then I try to force it, and not force it, but I try to participate. That's the word that I like to use, is that I'm trying to co-create with the energies that are. I know what a Jupiter Mars transit is going to be like, so I try to bring those energies out, and then I have a sense of what it could be like. But I think that sometimes that knowing of the future gets in the way of the openness of the moment, because I also want what is about what the universe wants to occur, to let that occur as well, while also being aware of the energies, rather than controlling it and seeing like, okay, this is how Jupiter and Mars can come through, and I'm going to make that happen, versus being aware that Jupiter Mars transit is occurring, but hey, I have no idea what could actually occur, and let me be
All right.
open to that. That's what I mean.
Yeah. So there are two, 3 points that I have to answer this question. First is when I predict about myself, I do not go into the nitty gritty details of things. Okay. Let's say, for example, getting married. Okay. To me, I'm not married yet. And I'm going to get married soon in the future because I'm an astrologer. I can check, I can tell you. So, and it's a big thing, it's a big change in life. So, for such things, what I do is I just uh, time it, as in, when is that going to happen? With what sort of person am I going to get married? Okay. When am I going to meet him? How am I going to meet him? That's it. Okay. Uh, this is all that I want to know. Okay. After I've checked it once, then I do not look at that thing again. I
Mm.
leave it there. Okay. What happens is, where I have gone wrong in the past is when I become obsessed with that. When I, instead of using the tool, I'm like abusing it. Like I want to know every single thing. Like that's when we go wrong. Like that's in my experience at least. Okay. If I just find out the major themes, and I know that, okay, this month, this week I'll get married. This person will come from such and such family. These are the going to be the characteristics. I even drew up a, I sketched his face so I know how he's going to look.
Wow.
So I think that much detail is good enough for me. Now, beyond that, I don't need any more details beyond that. So uh, once I've done this, then I do not allow myself to go back and look into my chart again regarding the same thing. It took a little bit of discipline in the beginning, but now I've become used to it. Like once I've checked, then I do not want to go in there again with the same question. Okay, first is this. Second is About the bad periods, what I do is that if I know a bad period, like about my surgery, I knew I I'll have this surgery. So, and it's not a very pleasant experience. So what I did was 3 months before surgery, I looked into my chart and I realized that, oh, there's a surgery at the end of the year. And then what I did was I deleted my chart because I knew that if I have the option, then I'll keep refreshing and keep looking and keep getting into the minor details of things. But they're not going to be useful. They're not going to serve any purpose. So I stop myself from doing all these stupid things. I force myself not to do those things. Okay, so I remove the things if possible. Another way I use another way I deal with the bad things is that, uh, for example, certain planets' spirit is always not a very pleasant experience for me, right? So when that period is approaching, I know that these 10 days are going to be intense. So during these 10 days, I have to keep my mouth shut. I have to make sure that I don't do anything crazy. I have to control myself. And after those 10 days, I let myself go. But along with that, I also time the date, that when is this going to become normal again? So then I have hope. Okay, after 28th of this month, it is going to be back again. Like, I'll tell you, there's a person very close to me, and my school friend, and I had a big fight with her, and I could see it in my child that it's going to happen. And then I forgot about it, the fight happened, and then I was sad. It was like, uh, then what I did was I looked at my chart and I timed, when is it going to get better. The date was 28th, I believe. After 28th, uh, everything became normal again. So I used astrology to give myself hope and to make everything better. And when you have hope, it just suddenly makes everything so much better. Like, you don't feel that burn as much when you know that after a certain date, it is going to become all right. So,
So,
so
so
that,
I'm curious, what made that um relationship better after the 28th? Like, what
yeah.
occurred?
So those things, I do not get into that stuff, because when energy in your chart changes, automatically the other person is going to, because see, what's happening is you're going to get, your previous karma is coming back to you, right? So this quality, like, if you're getting oranges from your past life and you do not like citrus, then wait till they start serving mangoes and you will like that phase. That is how I look at it.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just see that, okay, this is, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, what I meant was, what, not no, not predicting what would occur, but what did actually occur with you, like between you and your friend. Was it a conversation, or was it just suddenly everyone just forgot about it, or what was it that occurred?
Yeah, it just, after that date, it was like, we don't know what happened, but now it's, I apologize, you apologize, and it's all good now. We
Okay.
don't know what
Okay.
happened, but it wasn't a
Yeah.
pleasant time. That's it.
Yeah. I think it's interesting with these dates, and having a precise um prediction on the date itself. I think that can sometimes be a bit of a um, self-fulfilling prophecy. That's my sense, but I may be totally wrong. But that is my feeling when it comes, because even you said it yourself. You said, I just want to know when I'll meet him. I want to know how I'll meet him, and then I don't want any more. I don't look back. So remember, initially we talked about, the more precise you get with your prediction, the the chances of you being wrong is also higher.
The chances of you being wrong is the same. It's just more work, and mostly not wrong. It's always correct when you use the same calculation. It's always correct. It's not really wrong. Uh, it is a lot more work. That is for sure. Okay,
Okay.
it is a lot more work. And the thing is that I want to gain enough information from my horoscope to that'll enable me to live a better life. I don't want to stop living because I can know the future. I want to live my life. not just keep looking in my crystal ball and predicting things. Okay, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. That's not what I want to do. I want to use that information to, like, I wouldn't have like some people, some people who are not like, if I'm not worried about my business, then I wouldn't even look at my business chart. If I'm not worried about my marriage, then I won't even look at it. Right? It's about looking into your chart to know about something that is going to improve the quality of your life. If you are uncertain and that makes you nervous, look into your chart, gain some guidance from there. But if you're okay with it, then just roll with that. You don't have to check your chart for that.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, because I think the problem with the hyper focus on the future is that it takes away from the moment, which is very profound and deep. And astrology shouldn't take away from that. That's for sure. And
Yes.
I think as a, someone who's more and more deepening into astrology, sometimes that's my tension, is that I'm thinking about the future, or writing about the future, and then not really here as much. So I think that may be an area for us as human beings to continue to um, figure out and evolve, is to have this astrological knowledge without getting too caught up in the past and the future.
Yes. And to me, I always like to measure how much quality is it going to improve. Like minor events, like if I know what my spouse is going to wear on the day of a marriage, on the day I meet him, what will he be wearing? You can check that. Or his name, I can check that. But is it really going to add value to my life right now? Not really. Like if he's wearing green, great. If he's wearing blue, great. Like I don't really care. Or whatever his name is, like I don't really care.
Yeah.
So when you so at that point when you start doing these things, okay, what will my spouse wear? Like what color shirt will he be wearing when I meet him? When you start going into those details, it's just about flexing. Then it's not really using astrology. It's just, let's be honest, like at least for me, it's just flexing that I can predict that. That's not really serving any purpose. That's just
Right.
hollow
Yeah.
prediction.
Yeah. I can. Yeah, that is interesting. But then how do you, so now just coming back to the business side of things, because I mean, wow, if you can do that level of prediction, with, I don't know, the green color or what shirt or whatever it is, that is going to be utilized in business to no end, because you want to know, especially if you're like a trader, and then many people use astrology to do trading. So then what is stopping you from getting that precise, like which client I will get, how much they will pay, like that's what I want to get to, is are you doing that? And if you're not, why not? Because then it allows you to get the right clients, or whatever it is that you need to be using astrology in business for, versus letting the world unfold as it is without looking at exactly these precise um, pieces of
To
information.
me, to me, okay, let me answer your questions in two parts. The first is that I already am doing that for my clients, not for myself, but for my clients. Like there's some people who are interested in trading and Bitcoin and stuff like that. So I do predict for them, and they always come back uh, with like they're shocked always. Like, how did you know that? And it always happens. Okay, and then people ask me that why don't you buy Bitcoin? Why don't you invest? And the truth is that I'm not interested in that at all. Like especially after studying so much about business, I really do not want to study about investing in Bitcoin and crypto. Like because I'm a person that uh, I like to learn before I do anything. So if I'm going to invest, that I'm going to put in a lot of effort to learn that thing, to learn the strategies and mechanics and everything about that. If I can't do that, then I just don't want to do that. Okay. And second thing, I'm not really interested in crypto or trading. Like it just, I don't like that at all. Like I really don't like that. Okay. So, but I do that for my clients when they ask. And it is correct. It is correct. Okay. Second thing is, what was the second question? Okay, about the business side of things, like I can predict for myself who is going to come, who's not going to come. Yes, you can do that from your chart. You can definitely do that from your chart. But understand that when I said astrology is a tool to check what you did in the past and how is that going to influence your present, right? And there are two parts of karmas that are involved in it. One is the fixed karma, one is the variable karma. Okay. The fixed karma you cannot change. Impossible. I can tell you what is going to happen 3 months from now in your life, and that is going to happen if that falls in the fixed karma. Okay, I'll tell you if it is or if it is not. Okay, but there's a variable side to it as well. Okay, the way planets work is when you take birth, planets start installing beliefs in you. Okay, they make you experience certain things, and they start installing beliefs in you. So when you grow up, if the business belief that the planet installed in you was that I cannot go beyond $2,000 a month, okay, then after the planet has installed that belief, he's not going to go after you. He won't uh, be very strict with you. Oh, you always have to adhere to this belief, or you can't change your belief. It's not like that. Okay, if you want to use astrology to know if I don't do anything, what am I going to attract on autopilot? That is pure astrology. Okay, but I do not want to stop there. I want to understand the mechanics of how planets work, how astrology works, how they place everything in human psyche or in our consciousness that creates the limits. Or how can I, because astrology is about the past karma. What about the present? Maybe I can improve something in the present and improve my immediate future and the far future. So I've spent a lot of time developing systems to break the, every planet has his own way of installing beliefs in you or using other tools like beliefs, your belief system and other tools, right? So to break those and to attract something that is not written in your chart, it is beyond that, to attract that or to esoterically you can say manifest or whatever, and business side of things you can say, oh, you did the right things, or this is the exact step that you should have done to get this result. Okay, so when I use astrology, I check what I'm going to attract on autopilot. That means without any extra conscious effort from me, this is what I'm going to attract on autopilot, and then I take that as base. When I know my base, then I can just work on the next step that I want to achieve in life using that base. And then I use the systems that I've developed to break the chains and to evolve, to go beyond that goal. So that's how I work with it.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
it is astrology is basically what are you going to attract on autopilot if you don't put any conscious effort. That is what astrology is. Okay, but it does not stop you from attracting better things or having a better life. It is just knowledge of that. You have to gain that knowledge to understand what is your base level. Okay, once you understand your base level, then you can go beyond. But if you do not know what your base is, then it is very difficult to go beyond.
Mm. Yeah, that is very interesting. Um, yeah, I appreciate that perspective. Something for me to look further into, that base level idea. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I think before anyone wakes up to this idea of the astrological universe, then you're kind of like a pawn. You know, the planets are just having an effect on you, and you just have no idea what's going on. But the moment you wake up, you have uh, more free will, actually.
You have
To
100% free will.
Yes, but I do
100%
think,
free will. Yeah.
but I do think that um, the more, and I think we really do disagree on this, that the more precise you become with astrology, the your free will starts to dissipate. That is my philosophical stance on astrology, and that's why I think I appreciate the field that I come from, which is archetypal astrology, that it leaves room for that. It leaves room for that. It's not so
But I
deterministic. And with Vedic astrology, it's very deterministic.
You can use astrology to figure out what a man named Mango will say to you on 26 September 2056. His exact words. You can use that. I cannot do that, but I know people who can do that using astrology. Okay? Now, the catch here is that when we do not have the big picture thinking and when we do not really understand the origin of astrology and how it really works, then we get stuck. And the more precise it is, the more doomed we feel to that prediction. Okay, that's when we get stuck. But if you understand how astrology works, the mechanics and the big picture thinking, then you will understand that if I do not change what I'm naturally inclined to do, then that is what I'm going to attract. But if I change, then I can attract something else. It does not have to be that.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
way planets work is they give you tendency. They don't force you to do anything. They give you tendency.
Yeah. I can see that. It's a psychological dynamic that we're all born with in some sense. So the better you get to know these psychological, you know, aspects and dynamics that you are living with, the better you become at handling them. And the more open you can become to the aspects of those combinations that you haven't actually lived with yet. For instance, I have a Venus Saturn alignment, and I've always thought I'm very bad at art, which is a very archetypally you can see Venus Saturn as feeling that way about their own art. Saturn is negation, Venus has to do with the arts. But then the other side is that there's someone who has a really developed sense of aesthetics because they've been repeating that process with their art. So that has now, because I'm aware of astrology, now that part of my chart has opened up for me. It's like, oh wow, I've been limited my whole life, but now there's this area in which I can actually uh, develop further and open up into. So I don't actually know what the end of my Venus Saturn combination is. There's more and more to it. It keeps on unfolding. I never want to limit myself to thinking that this is it. And that's why I want to be open to the mystery, open to the unknown as to what Venus Saturn. It's as though the planets and I are in a learning relationship. We actually don't know what is going to happen. That's why I have the perspective that the precise prediction actually withholds us from what could be. That's my sense of it. But anyway, yeah, you can say what you want to say, but this is an area for definitely continued dialogue.
Yeah. So the thing is that as per Vedic astrology, every combination has levels to it. Okay. So at a certain frequency, Venus and Saturn are going to give you a certain thing. Okay. But if you breach that level and you gain access to the higher level, then it is going to mean something else. If you breach that level, there's going to be another level. So you can keep upgrading the levels and then you are not limited. You can go with the
Yeah.
same combination, you can go as far.
Yeah, that's
But
really
using,
interesting.
yeah,
Sorry, go
yeah.
ahead.
Using the quality and traits, and the traits and qualities also, they keep evolving as you keep progressing in the levels. They keep changing, they keep evolving, and you start attracting the finer qualities of the same planet.
Yeah, that is interesting. I hear these the sense of levels, hierarchy in Indian philosophy a lot. Even Sri Aurobindo had this sense of levels of consciousness, and it's interesting to note that India has a caste system. I mean, obviously, it's being demolished now as we enter more and more into through the modern world, but it's still very prominent in many areas. And so I think that there's something there about this levels of consciousness. And you're talking about levels of Venus, Saturn in terms of different astrological combinations, while Western system, and when I say Western, I'm really talking about archetypal from my perspective. There's no sense of levels. And you can see that in American society as well, which is very egalitarian, democratic. There's no caste system. So it's interesting that the whole worldview is embedded in a culture as well. And that's, I think, very important to see how maybe India has a perspective that is deeply rooted in the way that they have been thinking about everything, about society, and putting a certain level of people below others. And so what if that changes, and that you see that there is no level, there is no hierarchy? Yeah, obviously this is a deeper philosophical question as to whether life itself has any hierarchies or not, but you can see that, right? You can see how astrology may be even affected by the way that we see certain um, um, cultures within the country itself, and putting one below the other.
I think I get what you're saying, but I don't think there's any correlation, or I don't think that's where it is cropping from. To me, when I use the word level, what I mean is, and it is quite evident, you'll be able to notice it when you look at a few charts, that you're not the only person who has Venus Saturn conjunction, or whatever the
Square.
placement is in your chart, square,
Yeah.
right? There'll be thousands of people who have that, thousands of people who've run that time period of Venus Saturn, right? But all of them experience different results. It could be that uh, because of other conjunctions, because of other aspects, and whatever it is, the quality changed. That is why they experience different results. But what I'm saying is that two people having the same planetary placements will experience different results. And that is what I mean by levels.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're saying, and with, we have a similar term in archetypal astrology, which is called multivalence, which means that the same combination can happen in a multiple, ways, and it can happen
Mm-hmm.
in a multi-dimensional way,
Mm-hmm.
so I see what you're saying. The only problem with the levels and the hierarchy is that I don't know how to make that assumption. Venus Saturn could show up in someone who has chosen to not have a husband or any person in their life, and is only working with a pencil and paper, one paper and pencil for the rest of her life. She's creating art on that, and has chosen to not have a husband. While on the other side, someone is completely devoted to this one person, and she's also in the fashion world, but she works with these certain colors. It's like I can't put those two people on a hierarchy. It's like just so different.
No,
That's all it is.
no. Yeah, what you're talking about, in astrological scriptures, the first thing that is written, like once they teach you the basic stuff, and when you get to the predicting side of things, the first thing they teach you is that all your predictions should be based, you should take into account three things: Desh, Kal, Patra, which means the country you are in or the country your client is in, the time, the era, and the person you're talking to. For example, if I see a Venus Rahu conjunction in India, okay, I most probably the spouse is going to cheat on them. Like depending, there's lots of different variations in that. Okay, but when I see a Venus Rahu conjunction in say UK, then I'm not going to say your spouse is going to cheat on you. I'm just going to say that you're a person, or like depending on whose chart it is, I'm going to say that you're a person who believes in like you're polyamorous. I'm going to use the word cheating because of difference in culture. So you always have to take into account difference in culture. You always have to take into account the difference, uh, who you're talking to, the time, where they were brought up, what sort of thinking they have. You always have to take into account.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. I agree with that. That's also an archetypal perspective, that everything, the context, 100% matters, where they are, where they
Yes.
weren't. Yeah, but I don't. I personally just disagree with the levels, but I can also see
Okay,
the
let's
perspective.
remove the word levels. I don't. Nothing else comes to my mind, and yeah, so I just use the word levels, but it
Yeah.
it just means like different variations of the same combination.
Yes. Okay. That I can agree with. Yeah. Cool. so so okay, we did touch on this at the beginning when you said that there's astrologers, who are um withholding knowledge, and then also thinking about more the money than the actual practice of giving this service to people. Your your X account is called Astrology and Money, and it's very direct. You're helping people see that this is what I offer, and I really appreciate that. Now, do you think that there's well, obviously there's a delicate balance there, but how do we avoid that sense of corruption? Because this is the trouble with spirituality and commerce, is that it can become like greenwashing. There can be spiritual washing as well, and we're seeing some of that already happen in our world today. So how do we avoid that? As astrologers, we do have a responsibility here, right, for the field, to help people, as you also teach students, to help them not become too corrupted in that sense. So how do we do that? And is it important from your perspective, or is it okay to just set it free and see what happens?
So, to me, it's not just about astrology or the spiritual sciences integrated with business that have to be careful about this. It's also like every other field, whether you're in construction, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a scientist. Doctors can recommend uh, x-rays and scans. Like my brother went to a doctor today, and he told him to get a bunch of x-rays done, whatever, you know and the other doctor, he said, these are not required, only this one is required. And the reason the previous doctor recommended that, because he's going to make a commission out of that. So it's not just about astrology, it's about the person, it's about
Mm.
your morals. It has nothing to do with astrology or not astrology, or business or not business. It's about morals, about who you are. So first is that. Second, if you're sure about your morals, and if you have the basic understanding of how this world works, I don't think you're going to fall into this trap. I don't think so. Because if you're an astrologer, then definitely you should understand how law of karma works. If you know how law of karma works, then you will not have the courage to do this. Like, morally, you should reject these things already. Okay. On top of that, when you add the knowledge of law of karma, you will not want to do this, because it is going to come back to you. Why do you want to harm your future self in the present moment if you can avoid? Okay. And to me, earning money using astrology is like 1%, 100% ethical. Okay. Uh, where people go wrong is when I say that a student who's paid me $100, I will teach him, like, I should be upfront with my offer. This is what I'm offering for $100, and this is what I'm offering for $10,000. There is a difference in what I offer, but there's also a difference in price. If I'm upfront with it, if the person knows and I deliver what I promised, then there's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly fine, right? But if I say, oh, I'm going to give this to you, and then I don't deliver on that because in my mind you didn't pay me enough, then that is wrong. That's my problem. That's a me problem. That's what we should work on. Like, if that happens to us,
Mm.
it's about your morals. It's not about anything else. It's not about astrology. It's about any sort of business. This can happen.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. The character is what comes first, and yeah, having a sense of morals and ethics is at the heart of anything one does in life. If you're right about that, I think it gets a bit tricky when it comes to a spiritual practice, because of the purity that it holds, versus um, just something that doesn't have spirituality. Although one could argue that everything is spiritual. Having a restaurant maybe has its own set of morals attached to it. You know, washing your hands and not doing things that would affect your customers, and providing fresh food. Things like that are part of every industry, that's for sure. But there's something about the spiritual world that is a bit unseen. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's
It's
energetic.
easier
So
to cheat. It's
exactly,
easier.
yeah.
It's easier to cheat in that. So it is easier to cheat in this. If you want to fool people, you can. If you want to manipulate people, you can. 100% sure about that. You can. But then again, first, does it feel good, like, to be a person like to be a cheater or to take advantage of your clients? Does it feel good? It's about your character, it's about your morals. And then if you cheat, you know that law of karma is going to be behind your back after, like, it is not going to leave you.
Yeah.
So it seems very dumb to me to cheat. It's very dumb to cheat, because if you cheat, it's going to come back to you. It's a very
Yeah.
basic law of this world. Like, why would you cheat? It does
Yeah.
not make sense.
Yeah. I can really understand that. I mean, there's probably going to be people. Let's say, my next question is about. It's a bit similar about the malicious intent and the use of astrology, as it becomes more and more into the mainstream. And I think we both are are in agreement that we want astrology to come into the mainstream, right? Because we
Yeah.
don't know what happens next for our species if that is the case. We may really have a quantum leap in our evolution. But what happens when this power is this knowledge is totally free? Then anyone can sort of use it in a way that would not be so um, um, noble. And I know you're going to probably bring up karma and say that in the end that person will get what will be affected in some sense, but that may not, that karma for that individual may only come later in life, but then the harm that that person has already done, let's say using astrology to start a nuclear war or whatever it is, I mean, the harm has already been done. So
Hmm.
maybe we cannot remove evil from the world, maybe it'll always be there, but but is there a way for us to protect this knowledge, or is knowledge supposed to be completely free and it has to go through those cycles of creativity and destruction?
To me, it's not just about astrology, it's about any sort of power. Like, astrological power is knowing the future, okay? But if you have a lot of money, that also gives you a lot of power. If you are in a higher position, like, let's say in government, that also gives you a lot of power. To me, when you gain a lot of power through any means, either through money or through astrology or through position, if that is not accompanied with spiritual growth, it always leads to destruction. So I always advise my students, like my mentees, they don't like this advice at all. I always recommend reading scriptures and doing at least some sort of meditation or Gayatri mantra chanting to start their spiritual journey as well, like to actively participate in that. And I always say that all of this makes no sense if you do not practice spiritually. You must practice spiritually, otherwise human mind is a very, very dangerous weapon. uh, I cannot take guarantee of my own mind. If I remove all the spiritual influence that I have in my life, then I also may become corrupt, because it's easy. Our world is like that. It's yin and yang, and oftentimes negative is way more lucrative in the present and in the short term thinking than the positive. So it's very easy to fall into that trap. The only insurance you can have is have a spiritual master and keep following. uh, Spiritual growth should be at the forefront, and then all of these things,
Mm.
that has to
Yeah,
be at the forefront.
yeah, yeah. I totally agree. So you're an astropreneur, and we both want the world to head in that direction. But why is it that you think we should have more astropreneurs, philosophers in the world?
The reason is that because it's like in ancient times, uh, every village probably had, like, every few villages probably had one doctor, and that one doctor was overburdened and he couldn't help as many people. A lot of people had to suffer a lot of hardship because there was no person to prescribe drugs and, the medicines and stuff like that. Okay, now that we have a lot more doctors, the level of comfort has gone up across the world, right? Similarly, since there in the past and even now there are very few astrologers, and very few of them are real astrologers. Most are like junk astrologers, right? So if the number of real astrologers go up, the the drastic change you're going to witness is in the psychological comfort of people. Stress, knowing the future, not knowing the future, uncertainty, they really wreak havoc on everything in your life. And all of these things are mental concepts, they're psychological. It's not something that is happening physically. And I'm speaking from my own experience. Now that I have this tool and I use it for myself, for my family, for my clients, I see how much stress it removes. And the, the quality of life is like so much better. And if every single person can have access to this sort of service, not every person is designed to become an astrologer, right? So but those who have in their destiny that they can become an astrologer, and they can start monetizing that knowledge, and they are able to help people reduce stress, then it's going to be a better world. It's so convenient nowadays to travel from Mumbai to London, right? Because of the advancement. Similarly, it's going to be a lot easier, a lot more comfortable to for every psychological process that we have when the number of astrologers they go up.
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah,
feel.
that's really great perspective. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it helps you feel like life is not happening to you, but it's happening for you. You know, you have a
Mm.
deeper sense of understanding. Like for you, you just came out of surgery and you're in your Saturn return. Very, you know, it's getting close to its exact alignment. But that's a very Saturn return thing to go through, you know, and so it gives you a sense of understanding and empathy for yourself, that it's not just random. You know, that sense that we live in a
Yes.
random universe is,
No,
I think,
not at all.
at the heart of maybe the nihilism that many of us, many people in the world deal with, and that nihilism will go away, I think, with astrology. It's like a sense of deeper meaning and enchantment, and that the universe cares for you. You know, that is going to be at the heart of um, why people will appreciate, I think, being living in an astrological world. So yeah, that's really,
Yes.
I love the example that you gave about flying from Mumbai to London, and that will be the same on a psychological level for humanity. Nice. Yeah.
Yes.
So um what does your day look like as a philosopreneur, astropreneur person?
So my day, I start my day with some sort of calming activity. I listen to a podcast or I listen to an audiobook, and then I'll start writing my thoughts. I'll start developing my curriculum further. I keep refining my curriculum and my coaching program. So I work on that every day. And right now I'm working to relaunch my YouTube. So I've been working a lot on that. After that is like regular like consultation calls. I do that for 2 3 hours a day, and then after that, uh, I go into learning mode, the business side of things more, and the other things that I have. You know, you keep coming across topics that you have to, the skills that you have to acquire to improve what you're doing. So I keep learning. I love to learn every day. So I keep learning every day. Something I have to learn. And so I keep doing that. I keep refining my systems, and I focus on getting much more clarity. Like, I want to have more clarity on the big picture thinking so that I can guide myself better. I can help my clients better. And in the evening, it's just like free flow, like whatever I'm feeling in the moment. Sometimes I'll Netflix, sometimes I'll just do a bunch of more readings, sometimes I'll just teach my students extra 2 hours just because you're feeling like it. So in the evening it's like that. But yeah, that's how it is mostly.
Nice. That's beautiful. I love that you're living in a very spiritual and entrepreneurial way. That it seems like there's a flow there that you're incorporating into your life as an entrepreneur. So that's awesome. What are some pieces of advice and wisdom that you give your students from a business perspective?
From business perspective, I always tell them to first launch the offer that you can be sure, like launch an easier offer as in some things are very easy to time, some things are very easy to predict. Okay, master those things. And the, I don't know if it's irony or it's uh whatever it is, but somehow the things that are easier to for us to predict, there's a larger market for that. So I always tell them to master these few things. If you master these few things, you will not have any problem getting clients and retaining clients. So that is one thing that I tell them. And uh, the basics, I tell them to focus on the basics. There's so many astrological techniques, especially in the Vedic. If you go down the classical route, you'll find 10,000 techniques to derive at the same conclusion. So I always tell them that focus on this one technique, master this one technique, and this is going to give you all the answers that you need. You do not have to go and learn all those 10,000 systems. So focusing on the basics, focusing on one system is what I always tell them to do. And then launching an offer in a market that is easy to monetize.
Nice. Yeah, those are good pieces of advice. Very lucky to have you as a teacher who's holding both sides, astrology and business. I can really see that you've done a lot of work and that you're a good learner and an executor as well. So that's really awesome. Yeah.
You're very
Um
kind. Thank you.
it's the truth. Yeah, so I you mentioned your YouTube channel. Maybe you could just share a little bit more with the audience, and then is it just Divya Dhir, or what is
Yeah,
it going to be called?
it's the Dhir, and I'm
Oh,
going to
sorry,
start
Dhir.
releasing Dhir, yeah. I'm going to start releasing videos next month, and the videos are going to be everything related to astrology business, and big picture thinking. It's not going to be the usual astrology videos that we have on the platform right now. It's going to be very different. It's going to involve a lot of big picture thinking so that
So,
people.
do you mean like mundane world
No,
transits,
not
or
at all. No, I don't do that. I don't do that. No. Understanding the mechanics of astrology, understanding the mechanics of this world. How does everything fit into that frame? Like which place falls where? Because understanding this is more important than to understand the techniques or the strategies used in astrology, in the tool of astrology. If you master those tools, it'll be of no use if you do not understand the big picture. That is why most people are not able to take advantage of astrology. But if you master the big picture thinking, then even if you don't use astrology, it's going to benefit you a lot. So that's what I'm going to focus on.
okay, very cool. I'm very excited for that. So you said you're going to launch it in December?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. I'll be on a lookout for that. Cool. Well, any last words for maybe a piece of wisdom for aspiring astropreneurs, philosopreneurs? Do you have anything to say?
Yes. So I'd say don't make the mistake that I made. Learn both sides at the same time. Okay. Learn about business and learn about astrology or philosophy at the same time. Do not wait to master one and then start learning the other one.
Hmm.
Start both together because both of these things they take time. Okay. If you say you can learn online business in 2 months, it is yes, you can do, but that'll just be scratching the surface. You will not understand the nitty-gritties and the things that really matter. It takes some time and it takes a lot of experience as well. Same with astrology. You have to experience it, and that takes time. So start both at the same time. Launch your offer as soon as you're ready. And the offer does not have, it could also be like, the offer does not have, has to involve a monetary component. It can also be that if they like, they can just give you a free testimonial if they like your reading. So you don't have to charge. So you don't have to feel scared about launching your offer. Just launch an offer, start practicing in the real world. That is going to bring the most, uh, that's going to bring most value for your work. So
Nice. That's great practical advice that you've given. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Divya. This was a really great conversation, and I know we're going to have a lot more. There's still so many questions, open-ended, answers that we have. So let's continue the dialogue. Maybe we'll be starting something together. Who knows? So
yeah,
thank you so much for joining me on the Philosopreneur podcast. And
thank you so
thank
much
you.
for inviting.
Yes, yes.
I really had fun talking to you, chatting with you. Yeah,
Yeah,
looking
same
forward to
here.
our future ventures together.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.